It's a ham radio.
The Cadillac of ham radios.
Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another episode of Ham Radio as Stranger Things podcast. We've got a great episode for you today as usual, but first, we have a little housekeeping to take care of, and I'm going to turn it over to Jasmin to let you know where you can find us on social media and where you can listen to the podcast.
Thanks, Ashley. You can find us on Instagram at Ham Radio Media, all one word, on Twitter at HamThrough, on YouTube at Ham Radio Media, or using our handle HamRadio1983. We also have a Discord you can join, which is linked in the description of this episode. If you have a fan theory or question you want to share, you can email us at hamradiomedia@gmail.com. Ashley also has a fanfic on AO3 entitled Stranger Things College, which is also linked in the description. The podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and much more. If you like the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review. We have a lot of totally tubular stuff coming up, so be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with the podcast and all of our new content.
All right, and welcome back to another episode of Ham Radio as Stranger Things podcast. Today we'll be talking about the new behind-the-scenes teaser trailer that we got, and there was also a Tudum article that was about Season 5 that was released and told us about some new characters, some new looks, and some parallels to Season 1. And so, before we get into the trailer itself, we did want to share a few thoughts from Brendan, our former producer, but he still helps edit some of our episodes, and his wife Kelsey had some thoughts that they wanted to share with everyone on the teaser. So Brendan says, "I love the practical effects of the upside down and how it makes it look even more expansive, but I feel like this season will be mostly soundstage stuff. Probably our first season filmed mostly on a soundstage." Kelsey says, "After I watched it, it felt like they showed us a lot and maybe gave some plot points away. But then I rewatched it and thought, they never give us anything. So this behind-the-scenes quote-unquote teaser alone tells me that this doesn't even crack the surface of what we're in for in Season 5. Like, it plays out like they're not concerned about us seeing flashbacks to Will's time in the Upside Down, or our first look at Vecna, or even an apparent Holly subplot." Yes, I agree with both of those sentiments, especially what Kelsey said, because I kind of had similar thoughts to that. What about you, Jasmin? Do you think that they really gave us anything, or they just gave us what they thought we would enjoy, and it's really doesn't even crack the surface?
I think on first watch, I was like, wow, can't believe they gave us this much. There's so much in here. And I still feel a little bit, I feel like there's a lot they gave away, which makes me wonder, if this is what they're willing to show us, and they've given us so many behind the scenes pictures and videos since January, if they're willing to share this much, clearly what's really going on, like the main core of the plot that they're holding back, like there's going to be so much in this season, because if they're okay sharing this, if they're okay sharing this much, what they're holding back must be so much more than this. So I'm intrigued. I think we got some stuff I was surprised that they were willing to share. So I'm curious to just see, what they're holding back. Because if they're willing to give us this, there must be so much more to it.
Yeah, me too. It feels too like this is basically the video version of Raw Stuffer's photo dumps. Because if you look at some of them, and if you followed along or have been following along with when he posts or when the Stranger Things broadcast channel posts, you can tell that a lot of these images from this teaser were, filmed and all that in like the same time that he, took those pictures and posted them. So either way, it's still pretty cool. And so without further ado, Jasmin, you want to dive in and go frame by frame on the behind the scenes teaser?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. So we start off with a clapboard that reads 2 hours, 41 minutes, 19 seconds. You can't really make out much, but it looks like this is like 501, so I assume this is episode 1 of season 5. They're in the Upside Down, and then we get a shot of Castle Byers. And so, again, if you've followed along with the official Stranger Things counts, you'll know that the first line, quote, quote, line of season 5 is basically this scene. So, Jasmin, we're already getting a behind-the-scenes look at the cold open.
Yeah, and I know a lot of us had speculated that, we got that first line for Stranger Things Day. That was really the only, I think, meaty thing we got. And, people had been speculating, is this Will's voice? Is the child's voice that we're hearing Will's? And I personally thought that too. And I feel like this confirms that you can see the forest in the Upside Down with the vines. You can see Castle Byers. We've gotten those previous set pics of Noah and the younger actor filming. And so it seems pretty clear at this point that, we're starting season 5 with a cold open that's going back to Will's time, the Upside Down, in Castle Byers in season 1. We're going back to the abduction. But more than that, we're also getting more of his time in the Upside Down. Because I don't think they would have rebuilt Castle Byers just to use it for one scene, like just for the cold open. They could have easily manipulated footage they already had. This tells me that we're getting the abduction and then more his time the Upside Down that we didn't see in season 1. Like, we're getting all those missing pieces where, what was Will up to while everybody else was looking for him? And I'm really excited about that. In particular, I'm excited to see his point of view when Joyce is trying to communicate with him, because they kind of touch on it in season 4 when the others are asking questions about the lights, and Nancy's like, that's my understanding. I think that's how it works. So they kind of touch on the fact that, that there's a lot we don't know here. So I'm curious to kind of see, what was Will up to? How did he figure out what to do? Because we saw Joyce try to communicate with him. It'd be cool to see him trying to communicate with her back and his time in the Upside Down. And I would presume also we're going to get 11 flashbacks and see her, like what she was up to in between those moments as well. Because we really get flashes of Will and then moments with Elle in season 1, but it's mostly just everybody else trying to find him and trying to figure out what to do with Elle and like hide her. So I'm excited to get those in between moments of like, what were they up to? It's implied what they were up to, but like, what were they actually doing in those moments? And I think it's a really good use of the de-aging technology that's now been, that's become more advanced. That just wasn't, going back in that way wasn't possible when they filmed season 1, and now it is. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, me too. But I will say I'm going into it with a little hesitation, because if they do it in a very organic way that ties everything in, to the main story, like with 11 and her flashbacks last season, I'm all for that. But I'll be honest with you, Jasmine, even though it's always been a thing that I've been very curious about, what Will was doing in the Upside Down other than hiding from the Demogorgon. But I'll be honest with you, if we just get flashbacks of just seeing him in the Upside Down in 1983, and it doesn't really do anything to connect the main plot, I will be very disappointed with that. That's just my opinion and a little hot take there. But I'm very, very curious to see what exact moment the cold open will depict. Was it Will's actual abduction, or was it some other moment between, let's say, another character who was able to reach beyond to the alternate dimension to touch him telekinetically, which I kind of feel like, that's what's going on there. All right, so from there we get a shot of the Duffer Brothers looking at a viewfinder. I wish that I knew what they were looking at on the screen. Do you have any thoughts of what they could be looking at there, Jasmin?
Not particularly.
I wonder where they are too. Like, what filming location is that? Like a soundstage, you think, or
No, this looks like a live set to me. This looks like a location set to me. Judging what's behind them, I want to say maybe school. Doesn't look like the lab. Maybe school or another building in town. But I think this is like an on-location set. That's what it looks like to me.
Then we get a shot of Dustin riding to what looks to be like the cemetery. I feel like, I know a lot of people have said this already, but I'm going to add one to the pile. I feel like he's definitely going to visit Eddie's grave.
Yeah, that was my assumption too.
And then we get Hawkins High. Yay. This is going to be like, wow, this is looking so normal. And then we get our first look at the core four. We have Mike, Dustin, Lucas, and Will in the lunchroom. At lunch, Mike is writing something down, and the other boys are there looking. Dustin, whatever it is, Dustin looks very like, this is very difficult. He's puffing out his cheeks.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that too. But yes, it's exciting to finally see Will as a Hawkins Tiger. I've always thought they picked a good mascot for that. I feel like the Hawkins Tigers is a good mascot as far as mascots go.
Like mine was the Panthers.
Yeah, none of my schools, ever had a mascot I was particularly fond of. My middle school went from being we were the Shamrocks and we were like it was like a leprechaun, to being a gator that just looked scary as hell that nobody liked. They redid this mural and it was like terrible. And then I don't even remember. My high school must have had a mascot, but it was clearly so unmemorable I don't remember it at all. And then I don't think my undergrad had a mascot. No, wait, it did. It was a Mustang, it was a horse. And then my grad school was a bird. But yes, a tiger is a very good mascot. I really love the scene of them sitting together at the table. I feel like it shows a closeness there that we've really missed. Like in season 4, you see a great closeness between Dustin and Lucas and Max, but you don't see that with Will and Mike at all. So, and I think also the way they're sitting, you can tell that like Will was sitting across them and he got up and he's leaning over their shoulders. So I like that about the scene. Although I do kind of wonder why there's only one chair on the other side of the table. Like, normally there's like multiple chairs on each side of the table. Mm-hmm. Like, why was Will chilling by himself and everybody else was on the other side of the table? Like, why wasn't Lucas or Dustin next to him? Like, that's a little weird. I don't know how that happened. But some things I noticed about how the characters are dressed, like Dustin is still rocking the Hellfire shirt, but Mike has changed up his look. Will's also got a new look this season, and they seem to be going for a more mature look for Mike and Will, which I really like. I think, I know why they did it, but they went for a very immature look for Will for the past 2 seasons, and that bowl cut was not doing that man any favors. And I liked Mike's Hellfire look. Like, I know not everybody did, but I thought it looked good on him, but I also think, it's cool to see a more mature look on Mike, I think. Especially, when he's dating someone who's wanted by the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
This
exactly.
is not child's play. The other thing I noticed is that in addition to be a fan of New Coke, as we learned in season 3, Lucas is also a fan of Dr. Pepper. Because that's what's sitting next to him in this shot. And there's a Coke can, looks like, in front of Mike. So, Lucas, fan of New Coke and Dr. Pepper. You heard it here first.
All right, and then after that, we get look at not all the groups here, but most of the group, and I'm just gonna go ahead and let the cat out of the bag on this one, Jasmin, because I think by this point, I feel like we probably, by now know kind of where they are here. At the new radio station. My question is, what happened? Because it's very clear by this couch that somebody is living here.
Well, I hadn't noticed that. You're right. There's like a pillow, like a sleeping pillow behind Jonathan on the couch. I hadn't noticed that.
It's clear that this location is going to be like our Krill House location, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And some things I noticed, like, so after the trailer dropped, I went back through this video, like, frame by frame, and I compared it to all of the behind the scenes pictures and videos we've gotten since January. And I noticed that the Pink Floyd poster on the wall is from a behind the scenes pic we got in January. The photo of the telecom tower and that set pic of Millie with the Duffer Brothers, that appears to be part of the same set. Like from the outside. And then we recently got the photo of Steve outside the radio station, and the brickwork appears to match some of the telecom tower and the silo photos. And something else I just caught, which is interesting, because people were speculating on this like to no end. The schematics photo we got back in February, at the top, it says it's for a remote radio head. So I think that's what they're working on here, and they're using the stuff they have to like build it. And later on, get stuff of them putting something into the skies. You know, people were speculating, like, what are they building? What are they building? And I was like, it's going to be something to fight Vecna. Or I was thinking maybe a generator. But comparing this footage, I'm like, oh, it's a remote radio head. They're doing something with radio. And I wonder if this is kind of like an upgraded version of like Cerebral. You know how we got that in like seasons 1 through 3? I wonder if they can't use Cerebro anymore because it's too obvious, like because the military is there, or I wonder if they need something more super powered. You know, because it was designed to go between walkie-talkies, or to, as far as it can reach is like Susie, or I know they mentioned at the end of season 3 Mike and Elle using it to communicate. So I wonder if they need something a bit more super powered to reach somebody else, or I wonder if there's so much interference either because of the military or because of whatever like the upside down stuff has done to the atmosphere. Like I wonder if there's interference, and so they need something a bit more like super powered to, you know, communicate with somebody or do something. That's what I'm thinking at this point.
Yeah, me too. Like I think it's probably a combination of all of those, and you know, with especially like with Eleven's powers, like I feel like it's going to help her, you know, with that, and maybe help her with, you know, if she has a stronger signal to work with, maybe she'll be able to, you know, increase her strength in her powers. But yeah, I definitely think it's a combination of all of those, and I feel like what better way to do it than with the radio station tower, which, you know, a radio station, those signals can go nationwide, like FM radio, you know. So I definitely feel like it's somewhere in that realm.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. And I feel like there's so much to unpack in this one shot, this one group shot we get. Okay, so in this scene, we have a group shot of Joyce, Will, Nancy, Jonathan, Dustin, Steve, Mike, and Lucas sitting in a basement. In this footage, there are 2 crew members who are talking. One of them is talking to Winona, and one of them is walking past Joe, Finn, and Caleb. And I think this might be the most telling shot in the entire video, because if you break it down, you pause it, and you like up the clarity of the video. Like there's so much in here. I'm honestly surprised they gave us this because there's so much in here. So first off, Steve is wearing the red and brown shirt from the day 1 of filming video that Joe and Maya did. A photo from that was shared back in January. So they filmed and took photos of Joe and Maya on day 1 of filming for season 5, which is interesting given the group dynamic that we see in this shot, and based on like where we left things at the end of season 4, this shot appears to be from the first episode, which surprised me because the vibe of this gives me the impression of being either halfway or like 3/4 through the episode. It doesn't feel like a beginning shot, it doesn't feel like an ending shot, and if this is truly from episode 1, you know, that is a huge tonal shift. This shot is a huge tonal shift from where we leave things at the end of season 4, which is interesting because season 3 to the beginning of season 4 also had a really big tonal shift, and I'm curious, we won't know until it comes out, but if this is like an intentional tonal shift, or if it's something a byproduct of the fact that so much time passed between 3 and 4, and then 4 and 5, and that wasn't something they had control over. Because if you compare, like seasons 1 and 2 were filmed back to back, and there was about a year between 2 and 3 coming out, but totally season 1 and 2 are basically the same. There's a big aesthetic change season 3, but not much of a tonal shift. At least I don't feel there's a big tonal shift. There are some differences, but I don't think it's as extreme. Whereas, 3 to 4 and now from this footage 4 to 5 seems like a very big total shift. So that really caught my attention. It's also possible Robin is in this shot, but it's hard to tell because there's somebody sitting next to Nancy, but it's hard to tell who it is because Will is in front blocking our view of this person. It looks like it might be Robin, but that's unconfirmed. And as Ashley said, we don't see 11 in this shot. We don't see Hopper. Vicky does not appear to be here. We don't have Erica. So, it's possible those characters are off camera. We don't know. So some other things that jumped out at me in this shot was I was really shocked on how unhappy Jonathan and Nancy look. Like, Nancy looks really worried, and Jonathan just looks miserable in this scene. And what jumped out to me is how much physical space there is between them. Like, you could fit a whole person in between them. So that really surprised me. Like, again, we're talking about tonal shifts. If you compare that to their body language at the end of season 4, or their body language with each other in season 3, like, it's very different, and that, like, really, really surprised me. Because even if things aren't going well, like in season 3 they were having problems, but they were still very physically close or affectionate. So that really, like, jumped out at me. I'm like, wow, there's, like, a lot of space there. And the other thing that jumped out at me was if Robin is the person sitting behind, like, Will in this shot, like, if her and Nancy are sitting together, like, they're both on stools sitting together, that also really surprised me because the way we left things into season 4, we have Jonathan and Nancy embracing, we have Robin giving her massive side eye, and Robin's a very loyal friend. She's a very vocal person, and, Steve is her best friend, and she is very loyal to him. And he accepted her when she came out, which is very rare during this time period. So that really surprised me. If this is Robin, I'm like, wow, somehow we go from, bombastic side eye at the end of season 4 to besties sitting next to each other. So that's a really big, shift in dynamic. And if this is from episode 1, that means that somehow in like 30 to 45 minutes, we go from that to this, which is, I'm like, wow, that is so much ground to cover. So that, really surprised me. And the other thing is, like, Nancy is looking towards Joyce in this shot, but Jonathan is looking straight ahead towards the camera. Now, that might be just because he knows they're filming him. Do you know what I mean? Like, that might be him as an actor just looking towards the camera or where people are. Like, that could mean absolutely nothing. But I did think it looked a little bit weird. Yeah, it kind of gave me pause. It gave me pause the same way, Ashley, when we did, like, our predictions for this official season 4 trailer, I said something to the effect of, when we got to that part of the trailer where Steve and Nancy were like, see you on the other side, I remember saying to you, like, something's up here. Like, Jonathan and Nancy have no scenes in this trailer, and now you have this scene. I'm like, I don't know if they're doing something with this, or if it's just more of a, like, they used to date, and now enough time has passed, and it's like a friendly banter. I was like, but something is up here. I don't know what's up, but something is up here. And this scene kind of gives me the same vibe, where I'm like, not sure what's up, but I think something has occurred, like, and this scene follows it. Because I also noticed that, like, Steve is on the other side of the room. He's next to Dustin and Mike, which is interesting. Like, if that is Robin sitting behind Nancy, it's weird. Like, normally in group scenes like this, Robin and Steve are next to each other. So I thought that was interesting. Like, does that imply that, like, Nancy drove Robin or something? The only thing I could think of was it looks like Dustin has been injured in this shot, or beat up maybe. And so I wonder if maybe Steve picked Dustin up. And so he's standing next to him because, he's there to, like, support Dustin, or he's the one that picked him up. And then if you pause and look at Nancy's dress, it's the red and white striped dress that we saw in the warehouse video. So people have speculated this could be a candy stripper outfit and that she could be volunteering at the hospital. People have speculated maybe Robin's volunteering as well, maybe Karen is as well. Maybe they're doing this to kind of keep an eye on Max, to help out their community that's been decimated by what they think is an earthquake. The other thing is Jonathan has a new look. He's gone from California stoner bro to folksy alternative guy. And we later see him in the same outfit when he's pointing something on the projector. I'm glad Jonathan's got a new look. Longtime listeners will know I was not a fan of the stoner boy look. I don't think anybody was. It looked pretty awful on him. So I'm very happy to see that he's got a new look, and he seems more like, returned to form here. Something else I think is very telling is that Joyce is wearing her corduroy jacket and blue shirt from season 1. which indicates that by this point, the buyer stuff has arrived from California, which is interesting to me because I thought we were going to be like 2-3 episodes in before their stuff got there from California. I assumed Owen's people were having it sent or something. But this is her jacket from season 1. So unless this is like the world's most popular jacket and she bought a new one, that means their stuff has arrived from California by episode 1, which is really interesting. The other thing I wanted to say is that this is the same set from the Cheez-Its behind the scenes pic that we got in January, which is funny because when I saw that, I honestly just thought one of the actors was eating Cheez-Its, and someone pointed out that this was like a vintage Cheez-Its box, and that no, they're not eating Cheez-Its for fun. Like this is, they're in character, like they're in costume eating Cheez-Its, which I just thought was funny.
From there, we go into possibly one of my favorite scenes in this teaser, and one that I am certainly very intrigued about, is we get what appears to be the rainbow room in the lab with some upside down tendrils in it. And so I think the biggest question for me is this from 1983, or is this part of a Vecna vision? Because there's no way it's from 1979. But you could see in the mirror where 11 sent Henry through, there does appear to be a large, looks like an opening or something, or a large cluster of tendrils in that area. Jasmin, what do you think is going on here?
So my initial thought is that this is from, like, this is the way it was frozen in 1983.
Mm-hmm.
This is the vines covering that space. I think it is in the upside down. I don't think it's a vision. That seems unnecessary for Vecna. So I think this is like an actual upside down scene, which implies the characters are in there at this point. Which is interesting that in terms of timeline, we know that they're halfway through filming. These shots are from the first 4 episodes, which is pretty early for them. Like normally that doesn't happen until much later in the season. It's usually more like towards the end or the closer to the midpoint, which is interesting because that means the characters for some reason are either forced or have to go back to the lab in the upside down, which is interesting to think about what would have led them to do that.
Yeah, that's my thought on it too. And especially if like 11 is there with them. I mean, gosh, could you just imagine if that's the case, like what must be going through her head of looking at that and thinking about what happened in 1979. But yeah, I think you're right. It's obviously the upside down, as it were, and they're going, seems like they're having to go back for something that's specifically in the lab. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Maybe it's an item. Like maybe they need an object that is no longer there. I sincerely hope if they are down there that 11 is not with them. I hope 11 and Will are not with them. I hope they are at home eating some Eggos. I sincerely hope they're not with them for this. I hope, I don't know, maybe Joyce is sitting with them. Like, I sincerely hope they are not with them for this, because I feel like that would be particularly traumatizing for 11, but I think going anywhere near the upside down would be super traumatizing for Will, and I don't see them doing it voluntarily.
Mm-hmm.
So I sincerely hope they're at home eating Eggos when this occurs.
Yeah.
Like, it's something that when they're solving whatever mystery we see them working on, they determine that they need something, but they go back to the lab in the present day and it's not there anymore. It's been cleaned out. And so someone has the bright idea of like, oh, well, it's trapped on this date. It's probably still there. And so they go back to get this particular thing. And now that you've said that, I'm kind of picturing a scene where, that kind of like that Indiana Jones thing of like, oh, we got it. And then you turn around, you hear like a growl or a roar, or you hear Vecna's voice, or you hear something, and they gotta do the Indiana Jones run out of there. I'm picturing a lot of Indiana Jonesing and a lot of like the Scooby-Doo run.
Yeah.
In this season, like, we got the thing, go! Go, 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 go! Somebody trips, they gotta go back and get them. I'm also picturing 11 having to, like, yeet people. Like, somebody trips and they just gotta, like, fling them into the next dimension. Like, off you go. We gotta get out of here.
And then from that, we get a super cool transition shot featuring the neon sign of the season 5 logo. And somebody was saying that there's like a guitar in the background which I did not notice when I first watched the video. It's only, after a few watches through that I've noticed the guitar, a random guitar in the right-hand corner of the video. I'm not really sure, to be honest, what, if anything, all of this really means.
I hadn't noticed that either, but you're right. To be honest, I don't think there's any significance because we saw this as part of their offices / warehouse buildings. Because we saw this backdrop in some of the crew videos they did. Like they did that kind of videos with Jess Royal, the set decorator. And we saw the video of them bringing in the giant squishmallow of Eddie. And this also appears to be the same place where they did that big, like the main cast shot that we got back in January. So my assumption would be this is someone's personal guitar on set, and that it's chilling in this space because that's where it goes. Do you know what I mean? Like that is or it's, how sometimes you'll have like a group get together and someone will play the guitar? I wonder if it's like, you know what I mean? It's like an office guitar, if that makes sense. Because we know multiple members of the cast are, musical, and presumably members of the crew would be too. We know they do like, 3, 4 a.m. shoots, long hours. You gotta, keep the mood, gotta keep the mood up.
Definitely. And then from there we get an overhead shot of the entire complex where all the sound stages and the sets and all that they film out in Atlanta. And it's quite expansive, and it's pretty interesting to see. Like, this looks like maybe this was filmed either early in the morning or late at night. But it's very interesting to think about that they're probably using all of these 13 so odd buildings for their sets. And I think it's like kind of what Brendan was saying. It seems like they are filming a lot on sound stages this season, which, to be honest, makes a lot of sense because we know there's going to be there just has to be a lot of VFX this season for the Upside Down takeover. And yeah, they've done it in the past, mostly I think with Eleven's Mind Void and stuff. But I'm not gonna lie, I kind of love just the natural sets of seasons 1 and 2, and even to a degree season 3. And so I will be honest, I am kind of gonna miss that aspect in season 5. Because sometimes you really can't tell what's been filmed on a sound stage and what hasn't,
Yeah, for sure.
And then we get a quick montage of them building a set. And then we get a little snippet from Joe Keery and Maya Hawke from day one of filming. And we remember when Ross Duffer posted this picture of them. So that was pretty cool to see the video version of that.
Yeah, and something else I noticed is the sweater that Steve is wearing in this scene. Like that most recent video they posted where Maya and Joe were asking fans for questions on the broadcast channel is like a cut-off sweater vest version of this top. Like, it's just the brown with the red collar. And at first I thought maybe the sleeves were detachable, or maybe it was like a vest over a sweater. But I was looking at this shot again, and no, this is a complete sweater. There's brown on the bottom, red on the top. So I think what it actually is the video they just filmed was obviously filmed in a later episode. I think what it is the costume team lucked out and found a set of clothing, like a clothing line. Like, I think this brown and red top, these two pieces of clothing, I think they were part of a line that were produced in the 80s, and they must have lucked out at like an estate sale or a warehouse, or somebody had this in their closet or something. Like, they must have lucked out. And so we have the long sleeve shirt, and then we have this, like, the vest version. So I think that's what this is. I think it's they lucked out and they found a line of clothing, and they're like, oh, Joe Keery looks great in this. We're going to buy this whole set, and then we're just going to rotate these pieces throughout the season. Because I looked at that video, and it doesn't appear torn or anything, and you would have had to have, like, cut it or torn it significantly to make it look like that, and the sleeves are different as well. So I think it's a different part of this clothing line, because Maya's clothes looks very similar to what we had in that video, but what's on her shirt is blurred out in the most recent one. Like, you see how much effort the costume team puts into the clothing, and if you watch interviews with them, like sometimes they luck out and they're able to find really cool pieces. And then sometimes, like that dress that 11 wore in season 3, when her and Max go to the mall, there was only one of those that they ever found, and so they had to like recreate it. Sometimes they find a really cool vintage piece, and that'll be the main piece, and they gotta recreate it because there's only one of them, and it's dead stock, and there's no other copy in existence. So I just thought that was a neat little detail.
And then we go from that to a shot of the tunnels from season 2, and my biggest thing on this one real quick is, and I just like to start off this by saying that I have never understood the tunnel thing from season 2, other than as time has gone on and I've rewatched season 2 several times. The only thing I could ever really think to explain it is it's an effect of when the Upside Down continues to grow and to fester into the natural world. And so I feel like a similar thing is obviously going to take place in season 5. But I will say I do hope that we do get some of an explanation of what exactly it is that causes these tunnels to form coming from the Upside Down, because they're huge, But my biggest question about this shot specifically is there's a ladder in like the middle of it coming from like a hole. And so my biggest question here is this like a ladder from like the crew as they've been building it, or is this actually going to be in the show of maybe we see our people using this ladder to climb down into the tunnels?
I think it's got to be in the show, because there's a hole at the end, I feel like they could just walk into the hole.
Yeah.
Because this ladder, now that I'm looking at it more closely, it looks kind of rusted. So this feels like they stole a ladder and shoved it down there. Like, they found a rusty ladder and just stuck it down there. It gives me the same vibe as when they jumped down there in season 2. But this time they're like, guys, we're old, let's go get a ladder. They're like, we're too old for jumping, let's get a ladder.
Yeah.
Which, fair enough. They're not 10. Like, let's go get a ladder, guys. But yeah, that was my thought, and I'm excited that we're coming back to the season 2 plot with the tunnels and the vines, the pumpkins. Like, I feel like, there were a lot of unanswered questions there. We never quite got clarity on what the heck that was, and they burned everything, but did it actually go away? Because my thing in season 4, when it was revealed that Vecna was getting into people's minds, I wonder if it was connected to the vines somehow. Like, had it gotten into the water supply? Like, I feel like there has to be a connection there somewhere. And I feel like they've said that there was stuff in season 2 they wanted to get into more, but they ran out of time. I feel like a lot of questions were unanswered in season 2. We never got any follow-up with Callie. We never got a follow-up on this. It occurred to me the other day that, at least on camera, we never see 11 or Mike explain to Max why they were being mean. Al just shows up one day and is like, hi. And Max must be so confused. Like, they go from being super mean to her because he thinks this girl is dead, never apologizes for it, and then Ella's just super rude to her and ignores her for like a year. Until and she never explains this on camera. She never explains to Max why this poor girl is just trying to make some friends. And they never explain it to her, poor girl.
And then we get a shot of a crew member who appears to be putting on some fake blood on, I guess is part of the vine system of where they put them in those pool noodles. It's still pretty cool though to see that they still put a lot of time into the practical effects of the show, which I think only makes everything, with the Upside Down and Vecna and all that look that much cooler, because it's not all CGI and fake,
Yeah, and it's cool how much something I really love about the behind the scenes pics we've been getting in the videos is how much they've spotlighted the crew and all of the practical work that goes into the effects and the costumes and the hair and the sets. they really try to spotlight the people behind the scenes, making it look realistic. And I really like that they're taking the time to do that.
Mm-hmm. And then from there we get a little flashback to them filming season 1, and this behind the scenes thing of the season 1 of Mike and 11 and Dustin and Lucas, but also they have a little golf cart and stuff. It just when you look at it, just goes to show you how much this show has grown, and how far it's come from its first season. And then Millie Bobby Brown is commentating when they first started. She was 10, and of course now she's 20, and we see her driving down the good old Georgia interstate up there. I can tell because of the cracks in the road. I can already see, that's a little joke, but she does appear to be going at least in the speed limit. I can see the number either 54 or 64 on her speedometer. So that's good to know that she is being a law-abiding citizen. So good for you, Millie. I think the biggest thing that I really was like looking is to see what kind of car she drives. That's, because I'm sure it's probably some, really expensive foreign sports car or something. But I mean, when we get this personal, I at least have to know what she's driving.
I mean, this looks like probably a high-end SUV, I would say. I feel like either a high-end SUV or that's what I put my money on.
Yeah, or like a Ferrari SUV or something, or a Porsche. And also, Brendan wanted me to include this, but he's like, "Yep, there's Jake Bon Jovi filming her driving the car, because there's no way that they're not letting this man film her in the car." I'm surprised that Jake Bon Jovi is not in this for real.
I wonder if they put their foot down. Like, no, you are not a part of this show. Like, the fact that he's in those behind-the-scenes pics from when they were filming at the Wheeler house last season, that was a little ridiculous, because it's like, dude, you are not an actor, you are not a part of the show, you're not on the payroll. I wonder if maybe somebody put their foot down, was like, absolutely not. No, get a job. Absolutely
I know,
not.
and it's so crazy, because it's like, this is a perfect opportunity for him to be like an extra or something.
Maya Hawke has talked about this, but there was a pic, and people were like, oh my god, this could be a new character, and it was just, her brother had to bring her something on set, and so they had him dressed up like an 80s punk so he wouldn't ruin the shot, like as he was walking through it. And so I guess they have a thing where if somebody brings you something, they have to be like dressed in character so as not to ruin the shot or something. And I'm also kind of surprised that she's driving herself here, because she could just get a chauffeur if she wanted to. So, I mean, maybe that's her thing. Maybe it's like personal time. Like she's being driven around and she's got handlers and people all the time. Maybe it's just kind of her personal
quiet time
with her fiance, or quiet time by herself, which, I could see why she'd want that.
Hey, look, Jake is in the back seat, okay? He is in the back seat of that car. I have no doubt that he is there somewhere. Like, I have no doubt about that. All right, and then we see Millie walking into stage 11. That definitely was not planned, I'll tell you that. With her cute little cheetah print shoes on. And then we get some doors opening. To me, this looks like the farm that they've been filming at. I've heard a lot of people say that as well, and I feel like it's definitely a shot of the farm. And then we get the lovely Sadie Sink. It's so sad that this is one of the very few shots of Sadie that we get in this, and she's walking through the very impressive wardrobe that they have, and she's also doing her own voiceover commentary. And just one quick thing I had to say about this is, it's just so weird and kind of sad not seeing Max with the others, because for the past couple of seasons, like, so used to seeing her with everybody, and it's like, just knowing, at least for the first couple episodes, like, what all we're gonna really see of Max is her just lying there in a hospital bed. So it's definitely, I feel like the first, I'd say definitely 2 episodes of season 4, I feel like are definitely going to be a lot to get used to as a Stranger Things fan, because I do feel like there's going to be a lot of differences. I mean, the Duffer Brothers have already kind of said this, but I feel like it is going to take a little bit to get used to just the different vibes and all that of the opening of the season compared to the previous 4.
Yeah, for sure. I agree, and I mean, I think it makes sense we're not seeing a lot of Max because they can't really reveal anything. And yeah, I feel like that's probably true. Although we might, it depends on how it progresses. We might get some mind void stuff between her and Elle by episode 2. I don't know. But just looking at this shot, I just noticed this now as I've paused it that we see Sadie Sink holding up Max's jacket from the previous season. And I noticed that the signage says Lucas on the other side. So they have Max and Lucas, their stuff next to each other, which I think is cute.
Yeah.
I think that's probably for ease of access. Do you know what I mean? If they're in scenes together, you probably put them next to the people they're in scenes with the most so that the costume team can quickly grab it. The other thing I find interesting is that this seems to imply that all of their clothes per season are stacked up this way, because that's from season 4, right? So unless they've got her wearing it, like next to her you can see what looks like a hospital gown and then like some sort of red outfit. And then there's that brown jacket she wore. What was that? Season 4? Yeah. That's over there. So this looks like season 4 clothing. So that seems to indicate, I think some of the stuff on Lucas' side is season 4 as well. So it seems to imply that they stack their season up per like season, like 1 through 4. Which I suppose would come in handy. Like, they obviously wouldn't fit into their season 1, 2, or 3 garb, but the actors playing them with the aging technology, like, would, right? They could pull that. So I think that's very interesting that they stack it up that way. That's really interesting.
And then after that, we get a shot of Noah Schnapp reading a script, and I feel like whatever is going on behind him in the background is pretty important because it looks kind of blurred out. And he's also given a voice narration about how he thinks it's going to be the biggest season yet. And we get a shot of the bikes and then some walkie-talkies and some Twinkies.
I have something I want to say about this scene.
Mm-hmm.
So after we see the bikes and we see that person, the crew member extending the antenna on the walkie-talkie, I didn't notice this until I broke it down frame by frame, but on this person's jacket, there is a tiny rubber chicken. It looks like maybe a keychain or a pin on her lapel, which is a really weird detail, but I looked at it and I realized it is very similar to the rubber chicken we got that people were hitting that was making the noise in the control room video, and since it looks like that control room was from the radio station that they're filming at, since this is the second thing we've got a rubber chicken, it's making me wonder if this is an Easter egg for something. Because that one was just funny, but I'm like, why would somebody have a tiny rubber chicken on their lapel? Like, that's such a weird thing, and it's in this shot. So I'm like, this has to be a reference. This has to be either it's an inside joke with the crew, or it's an Easter egg for the show.
Yeah.
Because it's such an uber specific, like, you don't, that's not something people generally have. And it's upside down, too. Like the other one was. They're both upside down rubber chickens. So is this some sort of, like, I don't know, are chickens going into the upside down? Like, what is this a reference to?
And then we get a shot of the crew, looks like preparing a set. This to me, it looks like the exterior of maybe a house because there's like a trellis and then I see a window, but you can also see through the window what looks like upside down vines. So this is probably something that's in the upside down, but it's still pretty cool to see, what it all looks like from, behind the scenes. And the crazy part is like, you and I have talked about this, Jasmine, but when we actually watch season 5, the likelihood of us actually picking up on, this is in that shot in the teaser, like, I don't think we're gonna really be able to pick it out,
For sure. Like, some stuff I feel like we will be able to be like, oh yeah, But to be honest, like when I look back on the content we got from season 4, the only thing that stands out to me is like the library. Like there was a video someone took of Robin and Nancy running from the library, and some stuff about, I think Eddie, Dustin, Mike, Chrissy all being around the same time. But as we now know, those are 2 separate scenes. Those are the only things that stuck out to me. So I feel like, yeah, we're not going to be able to tell. Like we got that photo a while back of like Haley's comment on the dashboard, and I'm like, yeah, that's going to be in 3 seconds of a shot. We're not going to be able to pick this stuff out.
And then we get another clapboard, this time from episode 4, it seems like, from season 5, and followed quickly by another shot of them filming. Now, I have seen people say that this is Frank Darabont, who directed Shawshank Redemption, like basically confirmed by Kate Trefry on a podcast she did a couple months ago, that he will be directing at least one episode from this season. So I think Lucas is there, and they're in somebody's house, but I'm not really sure whose house this is, because it doesn't look like the Wheelers' house or really anybody that we know of so far. So maybe this could be another location, but you can see the lights flickering in the background. So wherever they are, it's not looking good, Jasmin.
No, it is not. And I think I remember seeing something a while back, like months ago, that he was supposed to direct, and in lieu of Sean Levy because of his commitments, but now it looks like Sean Levy is back directing. So it looks like, I think this guy is doing 1 episode, and I think Sean Levy's doing 1 or 2. And of course you have at least, I think, 2 by the Duffer Brothers. And I don't think it's been reported who's doing the other ones. But I'm happy it worked out that way, because when they first reported it was going to be all this guy instead of Sean Levy, I don't want that. He's a good director, but I'm like, I don't want that vibe for the whole season, and I like Sean Levy's directing. So I'm glad that, like, the way things schedule shifted post-COVID, they were able to do that. I think having 1 episode by this guy would be interesting. It kind of reminded me, like, there was an episode of CSI that Quentin Tarantino did that was really cool. It was like a 2-parter.
Mm-hmm.
But you wouldn't want that guy for every episode. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's cool to have him for 1 episode, but I wouldn't want him there for every single one. So, if that is the case, that's cool. Yeah, and I'm curious to see whose house this is. My first gut reaction was the Wheeler house, but I think you're right. Could be Lucas's. Although, for all we know, someone's mom decided to change up the Valance. I mean, could just be that.
And then after that, we get a very quick shot of 11. Woo! And I don't know where she is. It looks like a fan or something in the background for the lights. I feel like this is probably either the farm or the radio station. One of those 2. But she's looking very determined here, and we'll kind of get to this a little bit later when we get to the other shot, but I feel like this is part of the same sequence. But it just made me think of, like, and I like to kind of joke about this, but Millie Bobby Brown, it seems like, hasn't filmed in like forever, because she's been on multiple honeymoons, and this is kind of the same, I guess, with season 4 as well. It felt like she was on vacation for so long, and you go, where is she? Are we gonna, how much are we gonna get of 11 this season? What's going on with that? And then when you actually watch the season and you see, oh my gosh, like, she's filmed a ton, and you go, well, she wasn't even there for like 5 months. How could that be? And then you realize, oh, this is probably mostly on sound stages. And it's just always incredible how when you have these actors who it seems like the paparazzi or anybody else is never able to pick up in a set pick, but yet when you watch the season or a movie that they're filming, they're in it, like, all over the place, and you just go, how is that even possible?
I mean, some people are better at hiding from the paparazzi than others. I mean, nobody saw Taylor Swift for a little year, so, like, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, yes, I don't really put much stock in that. To me, that more suggests that they bulk shot a whole bunch of things, and if it's her in the Mindscape or her talking to Vecna, or, like, especially if they're doing a lot of her and Max talking in the Mindscape.
Mm-hmm.
That does not include any other actors. It's on a soundstage. They could batch that in a month. Or, if it's a lot of this shot of her using her powers, again, that's something you would batch. So to me, that doesn't really surprise me. And people have said, well, she's not going to be in it. I was like, to me, that's not what this suggests. To me, it just suggests that they're batching things. I think they're probably doing the same thing with Jamie Campbell Bower. Because the prosthetics take so much time. If it were me, financially speaking, and also just so you're not wasting the actor's time, you would batch that stuff. So you'd have a month of that's all they're doing. And you'd have the rest of the cast be like, okay, well, we're going to film stuff with the rest of the party right now while you guys go do that. So all the paparazzi pics are of the rest of the party, but those guys are off doing this. So that's more what it suggests to me. So I personally don't put too much stock in that. Because, she's, depending on your perspective, the main character or a main character, but she's the main girl. The other thing I noticed is that this outfit is the same one we saw in the Hangout video, from a while back, where she was making the iced coffee. And I believe this is also the same shot where we see her nose dripping blood in the woods. She did a selfie. And like I said, it may be the same as the later shot we get. So clearly those two are all part of the same scene. So this is either a farm or radio station. I tend towards radio station maybe, because this more to me looks like a fan you would use to cool down equipment or to keep something cool rather than like farm equipment. It looks a little bit too clean, if that makes sense. And so since there's clearly something that follows this where she's in the woods, her nose is dripping blood, this seems to be, maybe it starts in kind of like a mindscapey way or something coming through a wall and then transitions into the upside down or something to that effect. This appears to be like a full sequence. I feel like this kind of puts into context because we got some stuff where I'm like, wow, I can't believe they allowed the actor to post that. But now it looks like they were planning on dropping this anyway, which makes more sense.
So then we get another view, this time from behind, of another set. Then we get Charlie Heaton and Natalia Dyer. Apparently they just come on the set. It looks like maybe the Wheeler house in the background. Then we get Caleb McLaughlin coming on to the set, and him and Sadie. Then we get Jamie Campbell Bower sitting down in his Vecna station, and he also has a voiceover and says, feels like season 5 is going to be bigger than even season 4, which I agree. And then we get this amazing shot of the upside down, and I believe this is actually outside because I know that they actually filmed a lot outside with they actually put the tentacles and stuff on the trees outside, and I don't really consider that to be like any leak or anything because they've done it the last couple seasons. They did it in season 4 as well. So, and we know the upside down is a very big part of the show anyway. And then we get Cara Buono sitting down at her hair and makeup chair with the wig. We didn't see her in costume as Karen at all in this teaser, but I'm really looking forward to Karen this season. See what they do. I think Cara Buono is such an outstanding actress, so I'm really excited to see what they have going for Karen this season.
So behind her, behind like the lighted mirror, there's the square frame with the red. That's from the other shots of where they have the neon sign, which is interesting because this appears to be like a hair and makeup station, but normally that's done in the hair and makeup trailers. So I'm interested to see what this actually was. I'm like, I'm wondering, did they just create this for the video? Because it doesn't make sense for her to have this here in like, I don't know, the like lounge area of the office of whatever this warehouse or office building is when everybody else is in the hair and makeup trailer. And we've seen them, like with the stuff we got behind the scenes last season of everybody in the hair and makeup trailers, them having their own like hair and makeup stations. So I'm like, did they do this for the trailer, or did they need to expand where they were doing this just because they have so many actors this season? Like, is this like a size thing?
And then we get a shot of the Duffer Brothers seemingly directing a scene in the school, because right after that we get Mike, Lucas, Dustin, and Will walking down the school having a conversation. And then
they're wearing the same clothes that they were like earlier. Like when we see them at the lunch table, like these appear to be the same outfits. So this appears to be all from the same day.
Yes. And then we get Linda Hamilton out of character, but it's still good, so good to see Linda. Can't wait to see who she's playing. And then we get Pry Ferguson coming on to set. And then Finn, it looks like the Wheeler basement, and he also has a voice over there talking about how he's excited for the scenes of the original 4, which we also get. I think it's like a shot of them rehearsing the scene they're about to do. Out in the woods, it looks like where Chrissy and Eddie were. So, but it's still so good to see the boys.
And this is the same shot that we got, like that behind the scenes pic of them doing the hand pile. I think we got that one in costume, and this is like they're rehearsing the scene. So I thought that was cool. I'm so looking forward to having like more scenes with the original 4, you know?
And then we get to my personal favorite shot of the entire thing. Holly Wheeler in her room, and it's so cool. You can see the viewfinder on the right, so you can see probably a little bit more of what it looks like on camera. But yeah, the lights are flickering in that bedroom. There's rainbows everywhere, and it does not look very good for Holly here. So, and she's kind of
there's
getting up from the floor. I'm scared.
Yeah,
for this child.
It's not looking good for Holly, and it's a lot to unpack here. So for those that don't know, Nell Fisher has been cast to play an older Holly Wheeler. It looks like Vecna might target her this season because we see the lights flashing. So in this clip, we see the wallpaper in her bedroom matches the previous behind-the-scenes pic we got in March. It showed an elf poster and a copy of Peter Pan and Nancy Drew, The Secret of the Old Clock, and some other books and a holder. And we now know that this is from Holly's desk that you can see on the left. And so in this new clip, we can see Holly's light bright on the right by the window. We see a music stand, so presumably she plays an instrument, maybe sings. We've got shelves full of board games and stuffed animals. So yeah, it's not looking good for Holly this season. And then the following clip, we see her standing in the kitchen, panicking and looking at something off camera while the lights flicker again.
I know.
So,
poor
it's
child.
not looking good for poor Holly.
Yeah, and her hair is like
Really
sweaty too, so she's definitely like she's definitely been running or something. This has definitely been going on.
Or she could have come out of the shower, just gotten dressed or something. Like, I don't know, she's getting up from the floor, so I kind of feel like maybe she dropped something and went to go pick it up, and then like she noticed the lights are flickering. Or she's getting something from under her bed, maybe. Poor Holly.
I know.
Poor Holly. She's born into the wrong family here.
Yeah. And then we get a shot of Erica and a new character with, it looks like one of the Duffer brothers directing them in the barn.
There's a lot to unpack in this scene too. So for those who don't know, Jake Connolly has been cast as an unnamed friend of Erica's. I mean, it could be a friend, could be a love interest, we don't know. That's who we see in this shot. And so this made me wonder if the G.I. Joe lunchbox and Transformers blanket we got photos of back in May belonged to this kid, and if the 80s bedroom we got photos of with the computer and the board games, the stuffed animals, the E.T. game are from his bedroom. Because, people were speculating on this maybe belonged to one of the main characters, but the question was, this looks a bit juvenile for them, and people were saying maybe Will's love interest, but again, and I like that idea, but it also did look a bit like there's a giant sock puppet in those shots. So if this character is either her age or maybe the year younger than her, I feel like that would make sense because she's supposed to be, I think, still in middle school at this point. So this kid would be maybe a grade 7 or 8. So I feel like that makes more sense, because middle school is kind of that transition period from being a little kid to being a teenager. So that was what sprung to mind for me. And my gut reaction is I'm not sure why they're giving Erica a new friend or love interest that we've never heard of in 4 seasons, and why that person's getting screen time when they could be giving Will a love interest, or finding another love interest for Jonathan, or doing something with his plot. I'm it's going to be a hard sell to get me personally to care about this character when I'm like, your main characters have stuff that they need to, you know what I mean? Like, they need to find love. They need to be happy. It'd be one thing if this was Tina, for example, right? We've heard talk about Tina for 2 seasons. If this was Tina, I'd be like, all right, Tina. But this is not Tina, clearly. So for them to have just, like, brought in a random person we've never heard of in 4 seasons and expect us to care about it, like, that's a pretty hard sell for me. Where the heck is Vicky in this trailer? Because according to the behind the scenes we got back, like a while back, we saw her and Robin filming at the hospital. She's in the main cast shot. We get pretty much, I think, almost everybody else in this trailer except for Vicky. We know she was filming. It appeared to indicate that by episode 1 or 2, she's part of the gang. She's potentially volunteering at the hospital. They're definitely visiting Max, which seems to imply that maybe Robin has come out by that point in episode 1 or 2. I'm really surprised that Vicky's not in this trailer, which makes me wonder if there's something spoilery about any footage that they have of her.
And then we pick up at the cemetery with, looks to be the Jocks and Dustin and the Duffer Brothers, so I feel like something's gonna definitely go down there between them and Dustin.
I think that's why his face is all bloodied and damaged in the basement scene.
Mm-hmm.
That, he's there maybe to visit Eddie's grave, and we did see that previous shot of him and Eddie's grave has been, like, vandalized. So I wonder if they get into a fight over that, and they, like, beat him up or something, or they hit him and he falls. Like, I'm curious about this because it seems like some kind of confrontation, but clearly Dustin makes it back to the basement okay. So, and I'm interested if those guys are still hanging around. I mean, kind of thought they would have gone to Jason's funeral and pieced out, you know what I mean, and evacuated. Maybe the funeral hasn't happened yet. Maybe that's why they're still in town. Maybe they're visiting Patrick's grave, or maybe they're visiting Jason's. So I guess Andy would be the new leader since Jason is now dead. I was thinking it was going to be basketball guys ganging up on the rest of the party. But this makes me wonder, since the rest of the group seems fine, I wonder if it's just kind of Dustin clashing with them. Because he's there to visit Eddie, whereas it, like, they're suspicious of the other guys, but it's not as confrontational.
Yeah, like, we didn't get every single shot of footage that they've been filming, so we don't know. It could extend to Mike and Lucas as well. We just don't know. I think a big reason why maybe they're showing this with Dustin is because he took Eddie's death pretty hard, and we do get some shots of Mike and Lucas running down the hallway at the school, but I believe that's the middle school, so I don't know if that is connected to the basketball players are coming after them as well, or it could be have something to do with whatever is going on with Holly, or just...
Yeah, it's kind of unclear as to what this shot is. You can tell it's at night, it's cold, there appears to be vines on the trees behind them, so maybe this is the upside down, and there's water on the floor, but there's something behind them that could be that billboard we saw, the one for the housing development or something. Or it could be part of a truck.
Other possibility, I thought maybe they could be at the farm in a large shed, like where they park the tractors and stuff. It's very, very unclear. I mean, obviously they did this for very good reason, but yeah, I do feel like, because you can see some upside down vines on the trees out in the opening, but I don't really know who these people are either. I don't know if it's crew or if it looks like maybe military, because one of them looks like he's wearing some military style boots. Yeah, this one's pretty interesting for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's intentional that it's like a very brief, like blink and miss it shot. And that's our show. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe and tell your friends. Our theme music is provided by Neon Knights. Thank you for listening to this episode of Ham Radio, a Stranger Things podcast. Please join us next time, same dial, same time.
Over and out.